it is skewed towards the STEM disciplines. That does not mean that the thing that we are talking about does not apply to the other disciplines. So with that,
I'm Janet Allen, and I have been admitting students to our graduate program in industrial and systems engineering now for about 5 years. So I have an idea of what people look for at the University of Oklahoma, of course, but more generally across the United States.
now we've been giving this talk for the past 10 years. It has been updated, and today there are some key points that we are going to make. Clearly, we will not be able to cover everything, but these are the highlights, and then we can have a second talk, or you can email us and we will provide further information as we go along. So where do we come from? There's a difference between Naukri, looking for a job, and saying after a graduate education, I'm looking for a job, and looking to get a graduate degree to make a career. So there are three sayings that appeal to us immensely. And all three of them are foundational to having a career as opposed to looking for a job. First one.
So we are thinking about preparing students for jobs that don't exist, using technologies that haven't been invented in order to solve problems we don't even know are problems yet. And this has been something that we have seen happen in our careers, and we believe it's going to happen more frequently in your career.
So this has come about as a result of, one, the fourth industrial revolution, and two, the rise of computer science and the internet. The second one,
no problem can be solved from the same level of consciousness that created it. That's from Albert Einstein.
This is very important. What it means here is that you have to look within yourself and identify what is it that really truly needs to be done to be able to solve a problem. Not just go along and say, because I solved it this way the last time, I'm going to solve it exactly the same way this time. The third one is the most important one. It is not the strongest of the species that survive, nor the most intelligent, but one's most responsive to change. So we believe that the role of graduate education is to prepare you to be responsive to change. How do we want you to be prepared for that? By recognizing that what you're learning today at a university is not going to be sufficient for you to for throughout your career. What you have to understand is that when you're at a university, you're going to learn how to adapt to change. That means you have to keep learning. So getting a degree and then saying, well, I got this degree, so now I don't need to learn anymore, is not good enough. Yeah?
Yes.
So now I'm on slide 3. So to summarize, we believe that you will face a different set of challenges in your careers than those faced by earlier generations of graduates. One trend is clear: computing will become ubiquitous and less expensive than what it is today. And what that means is that things are going to be done faster, quicker, and it's going to get more complicated as we proceed. The second part is that we are looking at a world of complex systems. This means social sciences, ecological issues, and technical issues need to be taken into account you will need to take them account in your careers. So, for example, in the list that we have seen, Fazil wants to do something in Master in Business Administration. That applies to social sciences. Saurabh wants to do sports management. Dinaj has a bachelor in electronics and communications engineering. Janina wants to do something in mass media that deals with society and ecology, etc. So when I look at this list out here, all of you will be dealing with complex systems, whether they are sociological, whether they're ecological, whether they're technical. And what is a complex system? A complex system is one where you cannot control what actually happens. You cannot predict the response of a complex system to your intervention. Hence, you need to learn how to account for emergent properties when you're dealing with these complex systems, when you're trying to manage these complex systems. So gone is the time where all you will say is, well, I will enter data into a computer program and out will come the answer and I will act on that answer. So what this necessitates, the future for you, whether you are in business, whether you're in engineering, whether you're in the social sciences, is to recognize that one has to integrate sustainability with social justice and technical efficiency. Technical efficiency is very important because that's what keeps the cost down. Social justice is extremely important because that's what gives a fair break to people. And sustainability is very important because we need to take into account that the resources on the planet are limited and we have to use them responsibly. So with that as background, we want to look a little bit at the future. We are living in a wired and interconnected world.
Yes, did we lose sound?
I think Farrokh has gone off. Just we'll have to wait for a couple of minutes till he comes back.
There's a chat function we can use. We can chat with each other while we wait.
Yeah, sure.
If you check the chat function.
Yeah. So here's the story. I'm sorry we got cut off. Our internet died out here. So just to summarize, we are living in a wide and interconnected world. Information is going to be available very rapidly through social media, through sensors. Machines will be able to learn, and all this so that we want to do things in very rapid response time. So there's great opportunities for graduates in the humanities, great opportunities for graduates in the social sciences, great opportunities for graduates in the natural sciences, computational sciences, and engineering. That is very, very important. So what we're looking at is a world where it's not just engineering. It's a world where it's not just people in the humanities. It's a world where it's not just people in the social sciences. All the players have a great role to play in this digitized economy. All right. So now what we want to talk about is upskilling. Upskilling is defined as the improving the skills of workers, usually through training, so that they will be better at their jobs. This, for what works for workers is, why do we do it? We need to learn how to identify and cope with change. And the second reason we do upskilling is because we need to keep our passion burning so that we can keep happy and keep moving towards achieving our dream. And then finally, we can contribute to the mission of the company, to the mission of the NGO, mission of the family, mission of whatever you want to do. So the foundational reason to go to graduate school is to upskill. That is, improve your skills so that you can learn how to cope with change, learn how to keep your passion, keep happy, and most importantly, contribute to society. So we want to tell you a little story about Alice in Wonderland. And we want to make a distinction between a tool user and a tool maker. Both a tool user and a tool maker are required in this world. What we do want to tell you is that to be a tool maker, you first need to learn how to be a tool user. So here is the story. You will see on the left-hand side here that there is a tree and there's a Cheshire cat in the tree, and you will see that Alice is standing out there. There is a wall out here, and the wall, in the bottom of the wall, there's a small little hole.
Farrokh, you will have to share your screen again. I'm sorry, you have not shared your screen.
Oh, okay. Let me see. Can you see my screen?
Yes, now we can see it. Go ahead.
All right. All right. You can see my screen, right? So now we want to tell you the story about Alice in Wonderland. And what has happened to my thing here? All right. So you will see that there is a Cheshire cat out here, and there's Alice at the foot of the tree, and there is a wall out here, and in that wall there's a little hole, and Alice has the opportunity to be shrunk, to be shrunk, and then go through the hole in the wall to the other side. So where you see the Cheshire cat in the tree and Alice, that's the world of reality. On the other side of the wall is the world of make-believe. You can make anything happen. You can think about anything. Imagine what it is. Now imagine that you're standing out here, you're an undergraduate or you're a graduate, and you're standing out here where Alice is, and at your feet, there's a box of tools. Those tools include all the knowledge that you have so far. So if Idal comes along, or Yazdi comes along and says, Alice or Rohinton, I want you to solve this problem, the first thing you will do is go to the toolbox and use the tools that are in the box. And then when Yazdi comes along and says, this is very good, now I want you to do it faster and cheaper, you will go and learn how to use those tools faster so that you can do it faster and faster and faster. The faster that you can do something, what it means is that it's being organized and you can computerize it. At some stage, the increase in productivity necessitates that you lose your job and the computer takes over. So in other words, on the side of the world of reality, you're a tool user and you can make lots of money and do extremely well as a tool user.
For a while.
For a while. As long as you keep changing, as long as you're able to adapt to change. If you cannot adapt to change, you will not be able to continue working in the world of reality. Now, imagine that Alice gets shrunk down and goes to the other side of the wall. On the other side of the wall is the world of make-believe. You can make believe and do anything you want out there. Imagine whatever you want to imagine that doesn't exist. The tools don't exist, the problem doesn't exist, you don't know any of this stuff. Now the toolbox that Alice has at her feet is tiny, and that toolbox cannot be used to deal with the world of make-believe. What Alice has to do on the other side is to make tools. Very good. So Alice is standing here and asking the Cheshire cat, which way should I go? And the Cheshire Cat says, tell me where you want to go. And Alice says, I don't know where I want to go. I just want to go somewhere. And the Cheshire Cat then comes along and says, if you don't know where you want to go anywhere you want. Eventually you will get there. Now, this is a very, very important statement. In other words, when you're thinking about graduate school, you need to think in terms very clearly, why do I want to get a graduate degree? What is it in it for me to get a graduate degree? After I've got my graduate degree, what am I going to do with it? It is not just because your parents said so. It's not just because you're going to get more money. You have to feel it within you that you want to get a graduate degree. So the questions that come up is that you go and get a graduate degree and you will learn some technical stuff, or you learn how some finance stuff, or you learn some business stuff. That's perfectly legitimate. But while you're studying, what is very important for you to do is to understand and recognize that there are 5 very important career-sustaining skills. One is the ability to continue learning through reflection and the associate creation and articulation of knowledge. What does that do? That allows you to continue to grow. You don't get stuck in your old ways. The old tools, you figure out what new tools to use, how to use them, and stuff like that. The second thing is the ability to speculate, because if you cannot speculate, you cannot identify gaps and foster innovation. And there is innovation needed in the humanities, in the social sciences, in the computational sciences, and certainly in engineering. You have to develop the ability to ask questions. Why is that important? Because you typically ask a question when you don't know something. If you know something, there's no need to ask a question. And so when you ask a question, you have in essence identified, this is what I don't know, and I need to know that so that then I can act on it to do something about it. Then the fourth one is the ability to make decisions using incomplete information. And the leaders, the entrepreneurs, the people who are very successful, like Idal, who's made a lot of money and things like that, they are able to make decisions using incomplete information. They don't wait. They look at the whole picture and say, aha, on my hunch, I'm going to do such and such. It's a calculated hunch, but they do it along those lines. And then the most important one is the ability to introspect. You have to know yourself. You have to come along and say, aha, this is who I am. And based on who I am, I'm thinking about these things, and this is what I need to do next. Now, if you keep thinking it's no good, you have to, of course, take action. So now, having said that by way of background, in essence, what we've told you is where Bairi and I are coming from. This is what we believe in. The beauty of a university and a beauty is that other professors think totally differently. And I think that's fantastic. So Natalie may come out and say something totally different. The important thing is that you then have a choice between what Bairi and Farrokh have said and what Natalie has said. But if you have a choice, you'll get confused unless you know within yourself why you want to get a graduate degree, where you want to go, how are you going to use that graduate degree. Now, that's not easy, but you have to know within yourself why you're doing something. You must have a goal. So now, applying to graduate school. We're going to focus on the United States, but similar principles apply for Australia that we know about, Australia, Singapore, and Canada. The system of admission to Europe is totally different. And at some stage, we can talk to you about the difference between the European system and the systems that we've just told you about. In the United States, there are 2 very, very important factors. One is a grade point average, and the other is a graduate record score or a MCAT score
LSAT.
or a LSAT score, any of those scores. So those 2 things are very, very important. The second, now, you need to know the things that we're going to cover today are what to study, where to apply, how many places to apply to, financial assistance, statement of purpose. So Shanaz, the lady who wants to get a Fulbright scholarship, a fellowship, I emailed you and said that the value proposition doesn't come through. What do I mean by a value proposition? Your statement of purpose does not come through. I do not know what you want to do in the United States. Therefore, why should I give you a fellowship? That is what is meant by a value proposition. Finding a research advisor, first semester, etc. These are the things that we are going to talk about in what follows. What is the timeline and steps to follow to secure admission, financial support at a graduate institution in the US? These are the things we're going to cover in the next 10 slides. The first thing, does it matter what I study in graduate school? The answer is no, as long as you get a PhD. The master's prepares you to be a tool user. The PhD provides you with the opportunity to learn how to be a tool maker. Now, there are people who will say, we don't need tool makers, we need people who go out and make money. Okay, be a tool user. But I assure you that the people who make money are the people who are able to think big thoughts. These are the people who are able to identify the new frontiers and then relate the new frontiers to that which is happening today. How do I pay for my graduate education? Why get a PhD? How do I pay for my graduate education? In the STEM fields, graduate education in the United States is free. The professor will pay you money. Why do I get a PhD? Because a PhD provides you an opportunity to learn how to be a tool maker. How many applications? We recommend that you explore, you identify around 15 to 18 different schools, and we'll tell you how to narrow them down and then apply to 8. The idea of applying to 18 schools willy-nilly doesn't make sense. What is in the GRE, what is the quantitative that most people look for that give you a financial assistance? The quantitative must be over 70%, the verbal over 50%, and the analytical, that's the English analytical, needs to be more than 4 out of 6. So you will see here that what one is looking at is looking at a score of about 315, 320 when you add qualitative and verbal. Now, for the GRE, and the same thing is true of MSAT and LSAT and these things, you need to practice. And you can go to training classes, coaching schools. It's absolutely worth it. These coaching classes and things will bring you up by at least 100 points, if not more. And that will make the difference between getting a scholarship and not getting a scholarship. Now, the 5th point is very, very important.
So you want to do your homework. You need to really think about different schools. This is actually like a job. It's taking care of yourself. So you need to think about, in the context of what you want for your education, you want to talk to people, you want to find out what happens when you get to that school, what the specialties of that school are in your particular area, what the professors teach, what you're expected to learn in order to get the degree you want. And also you would like to know something about what has happened to the previous students the professor has had and how do they guide students while they are there. For instance, at Georgia Tech, we knew a man that had about 100 graduate students and about 20 postdocs. The graduate students would see the professor maybe once a semester. On the other hand, between us, Farrokh and I have about 10 graduate students and we have weekly meetings with our students. You need to find out what you expect to have happen when you go to this place and what you would like to get out of this. You'd also like to know if your professor is currently interested in research. Many professors have done research when they were younger, but have kind of stopped now. And so you need to find out if people are still active in areas that are of interest to you. The way you do that is you look at Google Scholar. So that is what you need to find out as you do your homework first. You should find out what the university expects to admit, what grades they expect to have you to have, what GRE scores they expect you to have, and so forth. And then you go out and you make your application tailored to your professor, tailored to the people that you're interested in working with.
So as we go along, we'll tell you more about all these points. Now, we get, every week we get probably 2 or 3 letters from people around the world saying, Dear Mr. Allen, or Dear Professor Allen, or Dear Sir, to Janet. I want to work with you because my research interests match your research interests. What's the point? First, the person doesn't even know that Janet is a female. Second, the person is saying, because our research interests match, therefore, guess what? Give me money, I will do anything you tell me to do.
And besides, we look at the research interests that are on the CV of the person, and they're totally, completely different than what I'm interested and able to do.
And then some of them lie to us. We have been to your website, and we have seen that you work in automobile engineering. I have never published a paper in automobile engineering. Why would I ever want to bring in a person who lies to me? I reply to each and every email, including these people who are lying to me, and I point out and say, hey, guess what? Do your homework. Most professors ignore letters. We don't. So what is important? The other thing they try and think is say, you're a fantastic person, you're a great person. Because you're great, take me on. Why would I want to do that? Now, professors, not all professors are research active. The ones who are research active have money, and they're the ones who can give you funding. They're the ones who can give you support, things like that. If you go to the website of the professors, the ones with very long things where they tell you that they're interested in doing research in 10 or 11 things, typically have stopped doing research. Those are not the people you should go after. You should go to Google Scholar, as Janet has said. You can become a member of ResearchGate.net, which is free. ResearchGate.net, it's a superb thing. And then question, do a query on the professor, do a query to see who's publishing in the area that you're interested in, and then follow through. Now, the moment you say you only want to get an MS, your chances of getting funding have reduced by 60 to 70%, period. So those of you with a good GPA and a good GRE score need to think in terms of what we've told you about how the world is changing, and that you get an opportunity to be and the need for tool makers, and upfront say you want to get a PhD. Because unless you get a PhD, it's going to be very difficult for you to be a tool maker.
Now, you may get a master's degree on the way to getting a PhD, but the PhD needs to be your final objective.
So those of you who are talking about financial assistance, please hear me very carefully. The moment you say all you want is a master's, your chances of getting financial assistance have gone down by 60 to 70%.
I would say more. But
Why would a professor give his research money to you if you're going to spend 1 year, 2 years, and then disappear? Okay. Now, if you came along and said, I'll get a master's, then I'll go to industry, and then I'll come back for a PhD. That makes no sense. Makes zero sense. Why would I, as a professor, want something from you, your industry experience? Unless the industry pays me to research that particular project, I'm not interested. So what's involved in a master's? This is whether it's in business, whether it's in the humanities. Typically, a master's goes for 2 years. It involves 10 courses with a thesis or 11 courses without a thesis. The master's thesis is equal to 2 to 3 courses. It provides excellent experience, and it helps you organize your thoughts as you go about, and it helps you organize your thoughts and as on the way to a PhD. For example, all our students are doing PhDs. At the master's level, they come out with their PhD dissertation topic. If you do not get financial assistance, there are usually on-campus jobs you can get. Work in the library, work in the cafeteria, work in the laundry room, work in the garden. Those sorts of jobs you can get, and those jobs pay a minimum wage typically.
Now,
Right now, the minimum wage is $7.50 an hour. Some universities go as high as $10 an hour.
So if you feel that this is a thing that you need to do, you might consider getting some valuable expertise. For example, you might learn how to be a web designer, which you would get paid better for than working in the cafeteria. So think carefully before you decide that you want to plan to, wash dishes in the cafeteria or whatever.
For a PhD, typically 90 units required, and 30, if you have a master's, 30 units are waived. That leaves you with 60 units. A typical dissertation goes up to 45 units, which means you need to take about 5 to 7 more courses for your PhD. That's absolutely nothing. There are usually 1 or 2 major examinations. They have different names like comprehensive exam, qualifying exam, general exam, and then a thesis defense. The dissertation advisor is very important, and you have to choose somebody very carefully, not just someone who can pay you. Please underline that. That's an extremely important thing, because if you just go and work for somebody and say, I like this topic, therefore I'm going to work with this, if that person is not interested in educating you, in helping you learn, it's useless. And you will find professors, all they're interested in doing is you finishing their job, doing what they ask you to do. At the end of 3 years, 5 years, whatever it is, shake your hand, say, wonderful, nice, you've got a PhD, and disappear. It is extremely important for you to check out the requirements for the master's and the PhD in the schools that interest you. This is doing your homework. Now, this is an extremely important document. This is the statement of purpose. I'm on slide 15.
So when I look at a statement of purpose, there are a couple of things I look for. So I look for what you say you want and what you plan to do after your degree. I have turned people down that have said they want to do something that is not that we do. Now, there are some universities, for instance, Georgia Tech, will sometimes accept people that say they want to do things that the university is not able to provide. The student gets there and they have to change their ideas, their plans. So you have to be sure that the university is going to help you do what you want to do. That includes what you plan to do after getting your degree. One of the questions you can ask a potential advisor is, what do your other students do? What have they done when they finished with their degree? So if they say something like, oh, well, they're traveling around the world looking for a job, that's not the person you want to work for. But if there is something more positive, for example, I helped this person get a job at Google or whatever, then you may consider working for that person.
All right. So the first paragraph, what degree do you want and why? What do you plan to do after getting your degree? Those two statements are critical. Why? Because in essence, you're giving the value proposition. What is the value proposition here? All universities want their alumni to be successful and then donate to them. It is becoming increasingly important that we admit people who are going to be successful and then donate to the university. This is crass, but that's what's happening. The second paragraph, your academic preparation for what you wish to study and your accomplishments, academic accomplishments. This does not include coming along and saying, guess what? I got this internship or that internship or stuff like that.
This also does not include, I worked on this festival, I did this event, I did the other event. This is something that is very popular in Indian universities, that people go and do many, many, many extracurricular things at the expense of their studies. It is much better to get higher grades and less extracurricular activities.
So in the third paragraph, you summarize your extracurricular activities and how these have shaped who you are. The second part is very important. How have these extracurricularly shaped who you are? It could be physical. For example, Idil was a great hockey player and an athlete. It shaped him. It gave him discipline. It gave him all those sorts of things. So yes, he could include it. But in my case, I just goofed off on playing hockey and soccer and basketball and those sorts of things. I wouldn't put it there. In fact, I didn't like any of those things. I wouldn't put that there. So it is important for you to choose carefully and show how those extracurricular activities shaped who you are. So for example, if you did voluntary work, I did voluntary work, and this helped me understand the reason for helping, for doing this research or that research. Para 4. This is a key paragraph. You particularize to the program you're applying to. Why are you applying to this institution? Which professors interest you? Much of this information will come from the homework that you do. There's no sense in saying, oh, you're a great university, therefore take me, I'm a great person also. Makes no sense. And in paragraph 5, you summarize all those 4 paragraphs. What it shows is your ability to synthesize. The ability to synthesize is very important. That is, I have 4 different things going on. How do I put them together to make it into a whole? So a letter along these lines, not long, a page, page and a half maximum, that's about 500, 600 words, is well received.
You notice that it did not say something like, when I was a child, I started playing with Tinker Toys, and I liked to build things. And my parents said that was lovely. And I had good friends that thought it was nice. This goes on for a page, and that's not what we need to hear.
Most statements of purpose, the person says, since I was little, I did this, or since my parents were this, I did this, or my parents told me to do that. I'm not interested. I'm just not interested. This is what I'm interested in. Now, some institutions, like Georgia Tech, require 1 short paragraph essays. So there'll be about 6 such questions, and they will give you 200 words, 100 words, 50 words, and say you have to fill it in that space. You need to read the prompt for the essay very carefully. What is it that you've been asked to write about? Now, in a separate place, write the prompt in a Word document or a sheet of paper. Think about it. That is point 3. Reflect with a view to understanding the prompt. Do a mind dump. What you could include in that 1 paragraph. Write it down. Say, this is what could be included in this particular thing. Then organize the mind dump into categories, and then you morph that into paragraphs. Then check whether you indeed have answered the prompt for the essay. We get essays. I'm on a scholarship committee for the Zoroastrian Association of Houston. The prompt says one thing, and the applicant goes off and talks about whatever he or she wants. Has nothing to do with the prompt. Now, this is a simple thing. You need to do a reality check and say, hey, look, have I answered the prompt that I've been asked to do? Not just write what I want to write. After you have modified this and organized it, you start writing the essay by connecting the material that you have. Review the connectivity. Put it through a grammar and spell checker. Putting it through a grammar and spell checker is very important. Figuring out keystrokes. So is there a space between the period and the last letter?
Or two periods.
Or are there two periods? Check this out very carefully. In your essay, you must include the name, the contact address, and the page number. Quite often we get things where after I print them, I don't know who's written it, who's put it together, or who to get back to. Now, this is an important slide. We have picked out 6 sources. There are many, many, many other sources. Graduate School in U. We've included the University of Oklahoma, but you could go to Purdue, you could go to Chicago, you could go to any of these things. Graduate Schools of the Planet is a phenomenal website. And you don't have to just think about applying to the United States for graduate studies. Australia has a superb program. Singapore has a phenomenal program. Canada, not all of them, but most of them are outstanding. IITs have a superb graduate program. You should not exclude the IITs. They could be a backup that you apply to. The GATE program is phenomenal. US News and World Report, that gives you some ideas, but you have to pay $29 or $30 to be able to get the detailed things. The GRE test information is given to you. The TOEFL test information is given to you. You need to take these tests, you need to practice these tests, and not send the test immediately to the university, but after you get a certain comfort level, you go out and send these scores in. So with that, Mighty and I are ready to answer questions for clarification first, then questions that you have that are pertinent to what you want to do. And then finally, we'll end with takeaways. A takeaway is a very important element. That is, from this talk, what have you learned? What is useful to you from this talk? Because if you don't write a takeaway or takeaways, a number of takeaways, then it goes through one year, comes out of the other year. Here, the idea is that us having given you this talk, it has influenced you or affected you in some way, gotten you to think, made you say, no, I don't want to do this, or say, hey, this doesn't make sense. So first, we're open for questions for clarification, then questions associated with what you want to do, and then takeaways. And now, please turn your mics on so we can hear the questions. And I'd be delighted if Natalie, Yazdi, Idil, and the others who are there can reinforce, add their own perspectives, because the more perspectives there are, the better it is.
Hello. Hello.
Idil, I think you need to summarize your career and reinforce all this toolmaker stuff, things like that.
I think he disappeared.
Hello.
Yes, Shazneen, you can go ahead.
Yes, I have a first. May I speak?
How about jumping into the conversation. There's dead silence.
Yes, the uncle, I think, can everyone hear me?
Yeah, please go ahead.
Yes, so I want to thank both of you for this.
Shazneen, Kurshan.
Yes,
Yeah.
so it's Shazneen here. Hello to all of you and thank you very much
Shazneen,
for
you
this
may have to turn
presentation.
people's mics on because I can't hear anything.
We can hear you.
Hello.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I can. Yeah.
Yeah.
Please.
I think Professor Farrokh, I'm wondering if he can hear me. Can you hear me, Professor Farrokh? I think he cannot hear me.
Farrokh, can you put up your volume, please?
I guess nobody's.
Farrokh, can you hear us?
Shazneen,
Can you hear us?
Yes, we can hear you. You can't hear.
Send a message. Send it in a chat box.
We're getting very curious what your question would be for Farrokh.
naturally, I can't hear you.
Shazneen is trying to connect.
Cannot hear you.
Is your volume?
Yeah.
Can you hear us, Farrokh?
Now I can, yes.
Okay, go ahead, Shazneen.
Okay. Yeah, so Farrokh, thank you very much, both of you, for this presentation. Can you hear me?
Yes, you're welcome. Go ahead.
Yes. My question is, what exactly do you look for when you look at Google Scholar? What is it that you look for about the professor? You know, what are the indicators that this person is right for me? And following that, what is it that motivates professors to take us on?
Outstanding questions. When you go to Google Scholar, first you will see how many papers the person has published. The second thing you will look for are the citations. The third thing you will look for is the H index. The fourth thing you will look for is the I-10 index.
Of course, you'll also look for the topics that are covered. Appropriate for you.
I did not get the third and fourth. What index?
The H index and the I-10 index. The H index stands for the number of papers that have been cited more than a certain number of times. H index is the I-10 index. The higher the number, the more respected the person is in the field of scholarship.
All right.
And then you can, the important thing is to see if this person is publishing with his or her students, to see where this person is publishing, to see whether what that person has published is of interest to you, whether you relate to it, whether you don't relate to it, things along those lines.
You can,
All right.
index, you can also look at the papers themselves if you have any question about what the title means.
Okay.
So becoming a member of researchgate.net, it's free.
Yes.
And that is even better because the people who have put things up on ResearchGate typically are research active.
Yes.
Then the next question you said, what is it that a professor looks for?
Yes.
Every professor is different. So we'll tell you what we look for. But there are professors who say, I want somebody with these skills who will do what I tell that person to do. We, on the other hand, are interested in people who want to be professors
Oh, good.
So we are looking for people who are drawn to being professors. We are looking for people who have a natural desire to invest and help people.
All right.
Other questions?
Okay.
Comment.
Thank you.
Natalie, Ethel, please add your wisdom.
Farrokh, I thought one thing that you could go into a little more is what is the timeline for the application, PRE exams and the MCAT
Yes.
exams and so forth. I think you should be taking those basically by December at the latest, and then you're applying in the spring. And especially if you're going to be considering getting applications into 8 different universities, then that's really quite a project. So you have to have the timeline kind of sketched out a year ahead of time and anticipate all of that. So I think that's one thing that you might explain a little bit more. And then my other thought was that in coming to graduate school, and especially going to graduate school in a foreign country, one thing to keep in mind as you're doing that is that with you being a young adult and doing this, you're going to have the challenge of integrating everything else that you need to do in life. So you have to have practical life skills in order to live and to function. So you have to have a little bit of thought about what basically will I need in terms of finances? What basically will I need in terms of my own living space that's good enough for me to be living in? What basically will I need in terms of my medical situation? Will I see doctors at my school? Will I see doctors back home? You have to kind of think about the practical aspects too. And so there's a challenge there for you as well. So that's some of my thoughts.
Yes.
Both points are very valid. So let us tell you about the first one. Universities in the United States start in fall, which is either in August or in September. The schools that are on a quarter system start in September. The schools that are on a semester system start in August. The applications need to go in the fall of the preceding year. So for example, if you're going to be applying for it's too late now to apply for the fall of 2018. Fall meaning August. So the best you can do right now is to apply for the fall of 2019. So this summer, the summer means right now, May, June, July, you should be studying very hard for the GRE test, graduate record examination, LSAT, MSAT, finding out which schools you want to apply to, organizing your application, getting all the papers put together, stuff like that. The earlier you apply, the better chances that you have, particularly at the top schools, of getting admission with financial assistance.
Let me tell you how we did it when we were at Georgia Tech. About the end of January, I would look at all of the applications that were available. And if I saw a good one, we would talk to that person and eventually perhaps make that person an offer. Once we had made that offer, that position was gone and no one else could take it. So the sooner that we made the offer, the sooner the person could be accepted. But after that, nobody else was accepted.
So the people who approached us in the fall. That is before the list went up in January. A number of times we decided that we were going to bring this person in. It's called a direct entry. And this was in October, November. And we tell the university to admit the candidate and that we would fund them. And we were set. So there's a direct entry and then there's a pool entry. The pool entry is what Janet just talked about. The direct entry is when you get in touch with the professor, establish a relationship with the professor, and the professor says, okay, I want you. So it's very important to get ready soon. It is very important to connect, get your packages ready, find out from the professor students what the person is doing, how he's doing it, read the stuff. And in another webinar or when you email us, we will talk to you one-on-one on how to do your homework. That is totally another deal. So for fall 2019, this summer, that is right now, you should be studying and getting all your paper together. You should also be applying to the Zoroastrian trusts in India and get some money from them, maybe for transport, for plane, for what have you. Now, Natalie raised a very important issue about medical insurance. It's extremely important that you get your teeth fixed, your eyes fixed, everything done before you come to the United States. Out here as a student, because you pay fees, you will have medical insurance.
Some medical insurance.
Some medical insurance. But if really big things and bad things happen to you, it'll be taken care of. But the usual things like getting your tooth taken care of, or getting glasses and stuff like that, very expensive and lousy service. So all these sorts of things you need to get taken care of. You should not plan on buying any clothes out here. You should get Indian clothes. You should get good Indian shoes, stuff like that.
So we had a party tonight, as a matter of fact, and we asked our students, some of the people that were there, what they were taking away from this semester. And a few of them said, well, I learned how to cook. They hadn't ever had to cook. And so they were suddenly faced with the problem of figuring out how to do that.
So learning how to cook, learning how to wash your clothes, learning how to iron your clothes, learning how to sew on a button. All these things are very, very, very useful.
Okay, Kurshan wants to ask a question. Kurshan,
Yeah.
please go.
Yeah, hi. So basically, I have actually been working for around 4.5 years. So I've been working for around 4 years PwC prior to this, and I was working, now I'm currently with Deloitte. I am a chartered accountant in India, and I'm looking to do an MBA in finance. Now the thing is that I've been trying to give my GMAT. I've been trying to, like, actually I've recently got involved in some social service activities also. And I'm like a little bit confused on how to go about, because I'm considering a break in the job. I just wanted to know how negatively would universities view this? Like, would it be viewed too negatively if I have, like, say, a 6-month break or so in my career?
In the business world, there are some business schools that say, do not come for an MBA unless you've got 2 to 3 years of experience.
Okay.
There are other business schools that are willing to take people directly into the MBA program. You need to do your homework and find out which schools have this requirement. Typically, it's 3 years, 2 to 3 years of experience in industry. So you have to do your homework and find that out. Now, here's the story with a break. Our son, elder son, between his bachelor's and his graduate studies, decided to take a year off. And we asked him
Okay.
why. And he said, I want to write a book. And he wrote a book.
Okay.
Right? Here's a bachelor's student who's going to start his PhD. He's put his PhD off by 1 year saying he wants to write a book.
Okay.
Now, he could write up and say, I took this deliberate decision, I did this, and I learned something from writing the book. There was value in it. Now, you, for example, would come along and say, I'm going to take 6 months off, and I'm going to take 6 months off and go and help people start businesses. That's fantastic. But if you said that I'm going to take 6 months off and tour the world, unless you want to go into tourism or something like that, it doesn't make sense to me.
Okay.
So
So, but what? Yeah.
So
Sorry,
the
please.
important thing, as we told Shazneen, is that you have to have a value proposition. I did this and I gained this from it, and this is how it has affected me. For example, you could say that I didn't like my job, so I took 6 months off and I decided that I must get a MBA and a PhD. Wonderful.
I decided I'd start my own company.
So there has to be a reason for taking 6 months off. Yes, Edel.
Yeah, could I jump in? Firstly, super presentation. It almost wants me to go back to college, you know. When I went to University of Wisconsin, the professor would not guarantee the research assistantship until he actually saw me, you know, physically there and got a feel for it. Does that still happen? And in my case, it didn't matter too much because I had a J.N. Tata scholarship. So, you know, it wasn't absolutely critical that I got a research assistantship, but I did get it as soon as I got there. So do professors still do that, or is it yes or no upfront?
Different universities do different things. For example, at Georgia Tech, mechanical engineering will not give you admission without financial assistance. Okay? The School of Industrial and Systems Engineering, again at Georgia Tech, say that if you want a master's, there is no financial assistance, zero. And they will stick to that. The only financial assistance that they will give is at the PhD level.
No,
Stanford
even at the PhD level, but do they say that I can't guarantee the research assistantship upfront and I can only do it after I see you physically?
So there are two types of things. One is a pool entry, where the university comes along and says, this is the pool, and the professors can go along and pick the person. The other is a direct entry. And what has happened, Edel, is this. In the old days, there was no internet, there was no Skype, there was none of this stuff. Most of us, if we see somebody who's interesting, we will Skype them. We will talk to them. We will do these sorts of things. So those old days have gone.
Okay.
On the other hand, there are occasions where a professor says he gets money and has met someone after they're there and says, well, in January, I'll hire you as an assistant. That happens very occasionally. That's because not everything fits the timeline that the university has.
Let me ask the students, how easy is it to get these days to get a J.N. Tata scholarship or R.D. Setna, which covers a substantial part of the education? You know, what is the percentage, or if you really had admission, what are the chances of you getting it or not getting it?
Honestly, I won't have an idea about it.
May I answer that?
Yeah, please.
I got the J.N. Tata and the R.D. Setna a couple of years ago, but I think there is a discrepancy between what Edel uncle you might have received several years ago, because now the J.N. Tata would give, say, 75,000 loan and 75,000 donation, something to that effect, and the R.D. Setna would give something to a lakh or something like that. So it's not significant considering the expenses involved in getting the education.
I believe the RD Setna gives a substantial amount up to 8 to 10 lakhs, if I'm not mistaken.
You should look at that seriously because, you know, it can solve a major issue if right up front you're able to get a, even if it's a loan scholarship, but at least it's a guarantee, you know, you're assured of an opportunity to go abroad, you know.
Let me tell you about Canada. Getting money in Canada, getting money in Europe is much easier than getting money in the United States. Getting money in Australia is much easier than getting money in the United States.
And there are good universities in these places too.
They're very good universities. And so you should not limit your vision to just the United States. Singapore, there are 3 universities there that are absolutely spectacular. One has been set up in collaboration with MIT, and it deals with product design. The second one is the National University of Singapore, and the third one is Nanyang Technological Institution. These are absolutely phenomenal places, and the funding that you get out there, all this sort of stuff is just superb.
Dilkosh, you want to ask something?
Yes, actually, I come from a travel background.
Sorry, you're breaking up. Could you say this again?
And I have got more than 6 passport. Hello? Uncle, can you hear us?
No, I can't. You're breaking up. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. I said I have around 8 years of experience in the travel and trade industry. But I'm trying to change my line to maybe an HR or something of that sort and go to the United States to study further, because I understand that on their university syllabus, there is nothing for travel and trade. It's just primarily hospitality. So is there an issue if I, whilst applying for it, like, because when I went to the consultant, they told me that it's not possible, it's difficult to get the change in my line into HR because I have worked for so many years in travel.
See, it depends on your statement of purpose. And it also depends on the homework that you do in getting in touch with professors. If you find out what professors' interests are, there may be somebody who's interested in traveling as part of hospitality, and it may be part of the curriculum. So I would spend a lot of time Googling, finding out things along those lines.
And HR is a thing that is very specific to the laws in the United States. So if you want to stay in the United States, perhaps HR would be appropriate. But if you want to work elsewhere, you have to be extremely careful because your training will not be helpful.
Now, where it's going to help you is if you said, hey, look, I've worked in industry, I'm a mature person, I now want to go and teach. I want to be a professor, therefore I want to get a PhD. And you came along and said, look, in HR, my interest is in using information technology or digitized, whatever it is, to be able to do new things. So if you showed a spark other than doing the same old stuff, there are people who'd be interested.
Hello.
Yes.
Hi, Mr. Farrokh.
Yes.
This is Iran here. Thank you for the beautiful presentation that you made today. Actually, I'll firstly tell my background. I'm from engineering background. I've done engineering in material science and metallurgy. and currently I'm working in Tata Steel since 4 years. Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Yes. Now I intend to do an MBA from US or Canada. But I am confused as in like US will be better as compared to Canada, or Canada will be more preferable. And the second question is, in terms of the entrance exam that I should give, is GMAT better over GRE, or it's either?
Typically, the university will tell you for the business thing what they want, whether it's a GRE or a GMAT. They will tell you what they want.
More often it will be GMAT for an MBA.
Yes. So now the again for an MBA, MBAs come with very different shades. There are executive MBAs of the type that Idil has been to, which is a very high-priced and a superb degree in terms of giving executives a idea of how to come up with strategy and things like that. And then there are MBAs that are focused on saying, I take an engineer and I show the person how to do business. So you really have to do your homework. Not all MBAs are the same. It may the MBA may be called the same, but the programs are totally different. Totally different. For example, at Georgia Tech, until about 5 or 10 years ago, there was no MBA. It was an MS in management. And it had a huge amount of technology in it. Now, whether it's better for you to go to Canada or to the United States, my recommendation would be to look at both, but show a preference for Canada. You'll be much happier there. It's much easier to get immigration. It's much easier to settle down. The laws are, I mean, the United States, there's a huge amount of split in the country. And at least for the next 5 to 10 years, I don't see things changing where I could say, yeah, come here, this is the greatest country and all this sort of stuff. Idil and I are happy because we came here in the 60s and we settled down and we are okay. But the new people who come in have a hard time, very hard time.
And so one more question, sir, actually I wanted to ask is, like in terms of digitalization of all the tasks that's going on in the world, so what particular MBA, like what field of MBA would you suggest for our generation to do in terms of looking 20 years, 30 years further, like what will be in demand?
The most important thing is what is it you want to do. You don't decide what you should be studying based on what you think it's likely to be. I've just given you an idea saying digitalization has taken along. Now, if you're drawn to digitization, then maybe you don't want an MBA. Maybe you want a degree in computer science or something along those lines. Maybe you want a degree in information technology. It's what you're drawn to. It is not saying, well, guess what? This is what's going to happen in 5 years, therefore I'm going to do it. Nobody can predict as to what's going to happen in 5 years. Nobody. These jobs that exist will disappear. Jobs that are existing today are disappearing and new ones are coming up. So it has to be from within you.
Hutakshi wants to ask a question. Hutakshi, go ahead.
Yeah. Hi, Farrokh. Thank you for a good informative session. But I find that you spoke more on graduation and PhD. I'd like you to throw some light on medical admissions because my son, who is also who will be joining in, is on the other line. He has done his Bachelor of Science from Duke University and is presently doing his post-bac at UPenn. He's also applied for MCAT. Score is around 518. And so what else should he do to improve his chances? Because as an international student, I hear that it is very, very difficult for us to get admission into a good into any medical school?
Here, both my buddy and I have to say that we have had no experience placing people in US medical schools. We do have people that we, if you send me an email, I can put you in touch with Zoroastrian medical practitioners in the United States who can then help your son. But we know zero.
One thing that does happen is that people take their medical studies somewhere else and then come to the United States and take the exams that are required to do that.
A former student of ours, his children were born in this country. His name is Syed Kamal, and 2 of his children went to the Caribbean to get a medical degree and then came back to the United States.
Mm-hmm.
So again, that family knows about medical schools, and I can put you in touch with them.
Sure, that will be nice. Thank you.
Anyone else needs to ask any questions?
Okay, in which case we come to the third part, and that is, what is your takeaway? Each person needs to come along and say, since we've been going on for 47 minutes, why was it worth it to you? Oh, an hour and 20 minutes. Okay. What are you taking away? What is it that you learned? Why was it valuable to you? And that is a very important statement, because what happens there is you'll then say, aha, I need to do this or I need to do that. So Yasni, if you could get everybody to summarize that, then the others can learn also.
Yeah, I'll call out one by one.
I think yeah.
Yeah, go ahead, Goshan.
Okay, so I think I would summarize it by saying that I'm not too aware of what all is to be done yet. But yeah, I do know now that I need to get onto my feet and do a lot more research than what I've already done. I have just been, in the thank that let me get my GMAT score in place and let me do everything else. But I think it's much more important to get a lot of other things also into place, like what colleges and, like if I can actually, like I've been stuck in that environment, or should I quit my job? Should I not quit my job? Should I do this? Can I, basically I've been all over the place, but I think I need to organize my thoughts and I need to sit down and work on this now.
Excellent. We have a professor here in South Carolina, North Carolina. He has teaching assistant positions in manufacturing management. So that may be of interest to you.
Dilkush, would you like to say something?
Yeah, actually, I have taken back is that I also need to do a lot of more research, and maybe as I approached the consultant and they told me that, getting admissions would not be easy in hospitality, maybe I need to do a little more research in that front.
It's not just research. What you have to think about is how you can market yourself. How do you sell yourself? How do you show yourself to be of value? The beauty of the United States is that people will take a risk on you, and there are people doing all sorts of new stuff and things like that. You have to just find that.
Right.
Dinas, would you like to ask something?
I just wanted to say what I really took away from here is I was constantly looking at universities as in where I would like to work and where I would like to study. But now I realized after listening to you, it's more important to find out about the professors who are working at the universities and figure out who I'd like to work with. That was my takeaway today.
That is a phenomenal observation. Because professors are very different. There are some who, everybody's professional, but some who say, hey, guess what? I'm paying you, you do what I ask you to do. At the end of 3 years or 4 years or whenever, you go through the hoops, I'll give you a PhD and goodbye. For example, we know of a professor at Georgia Tech who used to tell his students that from 8 o'clock in the morning to 5 o'clock in the evening, they had to work for him. And he got them to sign when they came in and when they left.
And that did not mean doing their homework for other classes. It was working for him.
Okay? Totally legitimate. A very successful person. And then there are others like us who say, we expect you to be our academic child. We are your parents. You have to treat us like your parents, so we can shout at you, yell at you, and you can misbehave sometimes. But in the end, you have to respect us and do what we tell you to do.
Yes, it makes a lot of sense, actually.
To know about, for instance, my PhD advisor didn't help me get a job. If somebody called him and asked him, he would give a recommendation, but he didn't do anything more than that. And that's not uncommon.
The same thing with my people at Berkeley. They just didn't do anything. Whereas here, the two of us go out of our way to place our students, find jobs for them, do all sorts of stuff like that.
Utakshi, would you like to comment?
Yeah, so what I liked about was what are the important things that you look for in the statement of purpose? You know, so that's very important. And of course, I will be in touch with Farrokh for the emails. That's the separate thing. But what I found good was, what is it that a person looks or a university looks when an application is received? You know, because most of the people who are applying are more or less on the same platforms. What is it that stands out in an application?
That's very insightful, because the person may have the grades, but if they write a lousy statement of purpose, that's the end of it.
Darius, any comments? Darius? Okay, anyone else wanting to say something as a takeaway?
This is Shazmin. May I speak?
Yes, Shazmin.
Yeah. I think that your presentation very beautifully brought out the current situation, which is the emergent macro climate, which is of continuous change, and the importance of upskilling ourselves at all points of time in our career. So, for example, I finished my PhD a couple of years ago in the UK, but I constantly do different things and learn different skills. And I'm looking at, for example, how to, although my background is in psychology, how to use innovative educational pedagogies and, you know, doing something about that as a Fulbrighter in the US. Your presentation talked about the importance of upskilling oneself, and also the SOP, making everything very articulate, specific, and clear, saying it upfront and upright, being upright about it. As also the importance of doing a lot more research on the professors and connecting with them. I'm still trying to figure out how does one actually go about establishing rapport with them when one is not face to face. So if you have any tips on that, I'd be very grateful to you.
Yeah, the way to do it in this day and age is first to go and take a look at ResearchGate or Google Scholar and sort of find the professors who are active and whose papers and stuff like that just, yeah, that's interesting. Then you go to their website, and most professors will have their graduate students or past students or something listed on the website. Then you reach out to those graduate students. The ones who will reply to you are the ones typically where the professor is also encouraging them to reply and reach out and stuff like that. The ones who don't reply to you, typically the professor is too busy or is not interested in reaching out and stuff like that. You start a conversation with the professor student, find out what's happening, ask questions like how often do you meet the professor, how long does it take, where have the students gone, what do other people in the lab do, and then you write a tailor-made email to the professor and copy your friend who has briefed you and say, I've read this, I've done this, I'm interested in this, and then you have a very good chance of getting a reply from the professor.
Great, thank you.
Any final comments from Adel or Natalie?
Yep. Yeah, just I have a very quick question and then the takeaway. Farrokh, how important is it that, as far as the name of the Indian university that you've gotten your degree from, do the professors recognize, all the different colleges and where you come from? Is that a criteria?
The answer is yes, and the answer is no. The IITs have a phenomenal reputation, and there is no question about it that that if you have somebody from an IIT, the chances are much higher than if you have somebody from Bombay University and stuff like that. But there's so many universities out here. So, for example, at Georgia Tech, we had people from Bombay University, Pune University, Sangli University in our own lab. So a lot depends on the experience that the professor has had with students from that institution. And so if you know of people who are already at that institution and have done well, the chances of getting in are much higher. So the creation of this track, I got a good student from Bombay University, well, I'm going to get another good student from Bombay University. That's how it works. The first time is difficult. After that, it's very simple.
Okay, and the takeaway is that right now it looks like the whole admission process, and especially if you're have to need assistantship, financial assistance is pretty complex. So it behooves WZCC and now the Zoroastrian faculty network that we are trying to create or created already and trying to advance. We need to do more of that to facilitate students. So we appreciate that even more now.
Natalie, would you like to say something?
Farrokh, you mentioned one thing along the way that schools sometimes think about: when we graduate this person, will they be a tremendous success and give back and give donations to the school, to support the school and build the school? And that brought to mind something that I think is good for people to know about. The alumni associations of schools can be very helpful in your career, can be very powerful just in your life after your education. So it's a good idea to get an idea about each school, what their alumni association might be like. And it doesn't take an awful lot to make a distinct impact in your alumni association. Even if you don't have a high-paying career, if you are a steady contributor, even at a small amount, and I mean a very small amount, $10, $20, something like that, if you do that consistently, once a year over time, you will be an outstanding person in your alumni association. You will be recognized by the university at times for doing that. So it doesn't take a tremendous amount, but that's just a overall tip, that I think can be helpful. Thanks.
Very nice. Thank you.
Sean, would you like to say something?
Yeah. I guess I could ask a quick question. So thank you for the presentation. I wasn't here for the entirety of it. I am the student who's applying to medical schools as an international. And so I guess the question is, what really sets an applicant apart as far as like medical school goes? Because you have a lot of generic cookie cutter extracurriculars, but how do you really sort of distinguish yourself and do something substantive in the extracurricular domain? Because once you've taken care of all of the prerequisites and the MCAT scores and everything else, I think you sort of need to go above and beyond as an international student. And so I'd like your input.
So let me tell you, last year, there was a mechanical engineering student who didn't have a super duper GPA.
Mm-hmm.
And he wanted to go to medical school. So that's the first time I got involved in an application for somebody who got an engineering degree wanting to go to medical school.
Sure.
And so we got to talking, and I found out that his parents were vets.
Mm-hmm.
And he used to go and work with these animals and take care of them and do all sorts of stuff. But then he came into engineering, and then he had this pull back to become a vet. So I helped him write his story, and he got in.
The other thing that I believe is happening in the United States and elsewhere is that most people that get medical degrees want to practice in cities. If you have an interest in practicing in a small area, perhaps a disadvantaged area, that might be assistance. Or if you have actually done something in perhaps a village in India or something like that, that might help also. It might.
That's a very good point. Thank you for that. Yeah.
So that's the only experience I've had with medical people. I've helped people get into law school, into graduate school in engineering, into business, stuff like that, and one person in medicine last year.
Yeah, it's definitely pretty daunting. It's an uphill climb for sure, but I mean, I'm applying this cycle, so we'll see how it goes. I think that's definitely something that I should look at, sort of emphasizing the underserved aspect, the rural aspect of my background and experiences, and that might play well with some med schools. Thank you, I appreciate that.
Okay. So thank you all, and we look forward to hearing from you. And we reply to every email that we get. Sometimes because we are traveling or we are busy, we may miss an email. This is how we want you. We would make it most useful. If you started in the subject by putting your family name, and you started the subject by putting in ZFN, and then then after that your family name, and then the date. Then it will come to our filters as such that will come directly to us, and we will to our attention. If you don't hear back from us within 48 hours, please resend the email to us with gentle reminder before the ZFN.
Kurshan, you want to say something?
No. I was just like, I do still have a few questions, but I think I'll just email them to you. It would be better.
Okay.
I will first, but I want to do my own research before I question you on anything right now.
That'll be fine.
Yeah.
Okay, then.
I just wanted to know your email IDs for. Would they be available? Because I only have. Yeah. Is there on the presentation?
Yeah.
It's on the presentation. Yeah. Send it to both of us, because
okay, sure.
that way we.
Okay, sure. Thank you.
All right. All the best then.
Yeah, thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Okay, thank you all for being there, and thanks.
Good night.
Have one.
Good night.
Janet. And
yeah, thank you, SD, for organizing all this.
I have one question.
Yeah. Yes, go ahead. Hello? Shajni, go ahead.
I think she has muted herself. 1 second. Shazleen, can you hear us?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. My suggestion is, in terms of taking the Zoroastrian faculty network further, can we have a webinar, say 1 month from now, or something like a group chat, or something that when we have specific questions, rather than bombarding Professor Mistree, could we have a broader repertoire of people? I'm just concerned about how much time he will have available for each one of us questions individually.
That is the intention of getting the Zoroastrian faculty network more people involved. It's a great idea. Absolutely superb idea. That's why we've got Natalie and we've got others who are ready to help.
All right. So would there be a common email ID of the Zoroastrian faculty network? How do we know who are the other people involved?
We will think about it, whether to set an email group or we can have a regular webinar, maybe once in 2 months or more frequently if required.
I think another webinar on medical school or nursing school or business school or something like that would be very nice.
Yes, so perhaps the social sciences, if you have a expert in that area, that would be great.
Yep.
I think that's a great idea.
Okay then, all the best.
Okay, thank you, Yazdi, for your help in
Thank
setting
you.
this up. And thank you, Farrokh, for the presentation. It was really worthwhile. Okay,
Bye,
good night.
Yazdi, bye.
Thank you, good night.
Thank you.
Good night. Thank you.
Thank you.